Oh, I don't think I like it actually. I kind of hate it. But this is a good lesson for upcycling projects, that sometimes things don't go according to plan, or the vision that you had in your mind, when executed, does not always look the same, but it's fine. You just have to learn to adapt and be willing to try new things. I swear technology hates me. But I don't really know how to start this. So here we go. My name is Jenna and I am a visual artist. So I would consider myself a multi-passionate artist, which essentially just means that I flourish best as a creative when I involve myself in different types of mediums. To be honest, it actually took me until I was in my 30s to finally see the power of being a multi-passionate artist. Because I feel like so often we're told to find a niche, find something to specialize in, when not all of us were created to flourish this way. Throughout my life, I've dabbled in different artistic outlets, such as drawing, painting, clay work, macrame, wood burning, photography, and there's probably more I just can't think of. Now, admittingly, I picked up a lot of hobbies that have joined the, what I like to call, hobby graveyard. And these are just hobbies that I got interested in, went out and spent a couple $100s in materials, hyper fixated on that hobby for a month, and then never picked it up again. Cross-stitching was the latest one. I thought that I would really enjoy it, but it did not surpass the 1 month fixation. Prior to deciding to pursue visual art full-time, I actually owned my own wedding design and decor company. However, life ended up taking me in a different direction and ended up closing down my business about 2 years ago. After the closure, I was left with a pretty large amount of inventory. And although I was able to sell and donate what I could, there were some that I was left with that I was not able to. For example, any type of personal signs or decor, not many people want to buy that. So I found myself having to get creative with, how am I going to repurpose these items? So that was around the time that I really started to get interested in upcycling. All right, so if you've never heard of upcycling or you're not exactly sure what it is, you might be a little lost at this point. So I'm going to do a little brief introduction into what upcycling is. So to keep it in the simplest terms, upcycling is essentially taking an old item and then creating something new with it. So upcycling is a process. It's usually a creative process where unwanted or old items are transformed, resulting in a new item that has a higher value or better purpose. This transformation is usually done by either repurposing, repairing, or refurbishing items. So some really common examples of items that people upcycle is furniture, decor, and fashion items like clothing, materials, etc. So if you're wondering what the purpose of upcycling is, it does help promote environmental sustainability by reducing the amount of items that are going to go into our landfill. Instead of discarding an item when it's no longer in style, or if it doesn't serve its original purpose anymore, we can repurpose them into a new and functional product. Now, this in turn contributes to a lower demand for new raw materials because people aren't going to be buying new items as much. Now, although this is a series on how to get started into upcycling, the scale at which you want to implement upcycling into your own life is completely up to you. Just please keep in mind that you don't have to be a super creative person or an extremely skilled DIYer to upcycle. The projects certainly don't have to be perfect. It is the intention that matters. And at the end of the day, if you feel like you're not enjoying the process, you can still do your part. You can buy or donate items to a local business that does upcycle. So overall, upcycling serves as a way for individuals to make a positive impact, not just on their community, but the planet as a whole. And as an artist and someone who's been trying to be more mindful about their environmental impact, I felt the call to explore and learn what I could about upcycling and then pass along that information. So I just want to make a note here that most of what I'll be discussing in these episodes is going to apply to both beginner DIYers and upcyclers, as they often will overlap with one another. So hopefully now you know a little bit more about what upcycling is and why we do it. So sit back and let's dive in. All right, so now we know all about upcycling. Let's dive into how to get started and where to get started. Easiest way to get started in upcycling is honestly just using items around your home. These items can include an old dresser, some clothes or fabric you no longer use, or maybe even a piece of decor that's a little bit dated. These items can be great to start practicing on, get some experience, make mistakes, who cares, no pressure. You could also ask your friends and family if they have any items that they no longer use, or maybe something that they were going to be throwing out, which is great because then you can come in and save it. So once you've gone through and upcycled everything you can in your house, it's time to look elsewhere. Here are some of my recommendations on places to go to find things to upcycle. The most obvious place to start is going to be secondhand stores. I would recommend researching the ones in your area, see which ones are locally owned, and also which ones give back money to the community. Second place I would go to is going to be online marketplaces. These are great because you can find pretty much anything you're looking for on there. So you usually have a variety of items on there, which is going to be perfect if you have a very specific project in mind. Next place I would check out is any garage or estate sales in your area. These are great because the money you're spending is going back to that family who's part of your community. And lastly, but maybe not the most glamorous, is going to be driving around and looking for curbside dumps. This one is definitely my favorite, as it is the most rewarding because you know that if you or someone else doesn't pick the item up, it is destined to go to the landfill. Something to keep in mind is the furniture that you find curbside probably is going to be a little bit more challenging, as typically it's going to be damaged and probably need some restoration work. Now, I don't want to say this to prevent you from grabbing a piece of furniture. If you have the space at home to store it, I'd say still grab it. You can bring it home, post online. I'm sure someone will come and take it off your hands. All right, so now we've got the pieces to start upcycling. Where do we do it? If you have a garage or a workshop that you're able to start creating in, it's great, but definitely don't think it's necessary. If you have a little bit of space somewhere in your house that you can just maybe temporarily rearrange the furniture and just make yourself a little workstation. It doesn't have to be a perfect setup, just needs to be functional. Not everyone's gonna have space to do an ideal setup. I certainly don't. I do not have a garage. I do not have a workshop. And I live in Canada and it gets very cold in the winter, so I cannot do things outside. But you know what? I just make it work. So don't compare your process to anybody else, because each and every one of us is going to have a different way to do things that's going to work in our environment. So let's do a little recap on our journey so far. So you found a piece to upcycle, you created a little workspace for yourself, and now all you need is these things: tools and products. I'm gonna put this down because it's very heavy. So let's talk a little bit about these investments. Now, of course, everyone's situation is gonna be different. There's gonna be some of you that are watching that may have all of these things on the list, and there are gonna be some of you that have none of these things on the list. Some of you may have been around power tools your entire life, and some of you may have had very limited exposure to tools, power tools, anything of that sort. So for those of you that do have a lot of these items, your investment list, so to speak, is going to be a lot smaller than somebody else's. But the reason I'm creating this list is I don't want to exclude anyone who may be feeling intimidated or just doesn't know where to start when it comes to upcycling or DIY projects. So how I compiled this list is based off of my experiences when I first started my upcycling and DIY journey, and from what I've discussed with other people who are part of the DIY and upcycling community. I met people in this community who were in the same boat as I was, who grew up in apartments, never really had a garage or access to power tools growing up. So as an adult, felt a little bit intimidated. And I also want to note that of course you don't need to go out and purchase everything at once. That would be a very expensive endeavor that I'm sending you on. This list, although to some people may just be the basics, it took me a while to accumulate all of these things. And there is absolutely no problem with that either. Just taking your time, building your collection as you go. And how much you're willing to invest is going to kind of depend on what your intentions are with starting upcycling and DIY. If it's a personal journey and you're just looking to upcycle a few things around your house, you're just looking to get a little bit creative, then you may only have to invest in a few tools, maybe some paint supplies and a few other things. But on the other hand, if you're potentially wanting to start a business with this, or even having it as another stream of income, it may be worthwhile to invest in some of these higher ticket items. The way that I break it down when I'm looking to invest in a new piece of equipment, which is quite often, if we're being honest, whether it's a $1,000 scroll saw or it's a $300 paint sprayer tent, my wish list of items is never ending, it seems. Anyways, I digress. So when you are looking to purchase a new piece of equipment, what I'll do is I'll take a look at the cost of that item, and then I'll compare it to how many projects can I sell that will be using that piece of equipment. So in my head, it pays for itself as long as I am able to sell those projects. Now, one last tip, at the risk of exposing myself as a potential hoarder, I am going to suggest that you keep those wood scraps. These guys, keep them. I'm not saying that to encourage any hoarding behavior, but I am saying that they can be great pieces to practice on when you're first starting out using different tools, when you want to test how a certain stain is going to take with a specific type of wood, using it to prop up items when you're spraying. If you are new to using a specific type of saw, that is a perfect way to just test your cuts. So with all that being said, let's dive in. So first up, let's take a peek at what should be inside your basic toolkit. First up, obviously hammer. You'll want a set of screwdrivers, a measuring tape, a utility blade, some sanding blocks with assorted grits, a few different types of pliers, and lastly, a couple different sizes of metal putty knives. And now we're going to move into some power tool suggestions. Now, there are plenty of options when it comes to different types of saws. Some of them are a little bit more on the expensive side though. So I would recommend starting with this one, which is just a circular saw. Another suggestion, if you're looking for one more on the affordable side, would be a jigsaw. And then I would say if you don't already own one, to pick up a drill and an impact driver. You'll also want to pick up the bit sets with these. A sander is going to be an absolute must if you're going to be doing any furniture flipping. This one here is a random orbital sander. That would be the one that I would suggest if you're going to be purchasing one, although there are other kinds as well. And of course, we're going to have a shop vac on this list. You can also pick up an attachment that will allow you to directly connect your sander to the shop vac. And lastly, although it is not a power tool, had to slide it in there, and that's just a dolly. And it's going to make your life so much easier, especially if you're going to be working with heavier items. So you've got the tools, now you need the safety gear. So an N95 mask is kind of the minimum that I recommend. If you can purchase a paint respirator mask, that is the one that I would recommend. And you also want to make sure you've got some ear muffs to protect your ears. And of course, a pair of safety glasses. And just a pair of utility gloves. And this last one that people frequently forget about, knee pads. And next, let's cover paint rollers. So I would recommend having at least 2 different size frames, one of them being a mini or a whiz roller, and the other one being a standard 9-inch roller frame. And the next component you have is going to be the sleeve or cover, which is what you place on the frame. And these are offered in different types of material. The most common one you're going to find is going to be microfiber, and then you also have a difference in the thickness of the material. This is commonly referred to as the nap or the pile. A good rule of thumb is the rougher the surface, the higher the pile you want to go. And the same is going to apply for the whiz sleeves. A couple examples here, we've got a foam roller, and then we've got a microfiber roller. And a little bonus tip for when you purchase a new sleeve. If you want to avoid transferring any of those pesky fibers, wrap your sleeve up in tape and then peel it back. And that should release any of the loose fibers. Is going to be paint trays. So here I have 2 of the most common styles. I have a tray that will fit the standard 9-inch cage, and then I also have a handheld one as well. There are a couple different styles of handheld paint trays. This one in particular is just one of my favorites in terms of size and function. So the interior of the bucket, you can see there is a magnet. This is just to allow you to attach brushes to the inside. Of course, most paint brushes do have this metal part here that will attach to the magnet. It's also great as well if you're using a whiz roller or a smaller roller like this. You just attach right on the inside here or on the outside as well. This is the perfect size if you're just doing a smaller project or detailed work. You can also purchase plastic inserts for these trays. However, if you do want to be a little bit more on the environmentally friendly side, just allow the paint to dry in a thick enough of a layer. You can actually peel it right off as soon as it's dry. It's also super satisfying. Look at that. And here I've gathered a group of products that I find I most commonly use during my projects. And first up, I've got a couple different types of adhesives. If you don't already have one, I would suggest investing in a good quality super glue. With super glue, typically the bond created is pretty tight and rigid, so I would also suggest a rubber-based adhesive. This will create a little bit more of a flexible bond. The cure time working with these types of adhesives is usually a lot longer, which may be necessary depending on the type of project that you're working on. And then here I've got a wood glue, and you will need this product if your project involves any type of woodworking. And next we'll jump into different types of fillers. This one here is just a spackling paste. Although it's used mostly for interior renovation work, you can also use it for different DIY projects. A lot of people will use it to create textured canvas art. This product in particular is great as it is applied pink, and then when it is dry, it'll turn white. And then we've got some wood filler here. I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. Just know that there is a difference between wood filler, wood putty, and wood epoxy. In my opinion, the filler and the putty, these are going to be better for filling smaller holes and more surface level cracks or scratches. If you have a larger or a more complex repair to do, my suggestion would be to use the wood epoxy, as it is a lot more durable than a filler. So with epoxy, you mix together two separate components. So you will want to make sure that you only mix them right before the application. If you've never used epoxy before, I would recommend working only with very small amounts in the beginning. And if you're working with secondhand items, you are definitely going to want a heavy-duty cleaner. And if you're interested in furniture restoration, you will 100% need to invest in a paint stripper. Just make sure that you're taking safety precautions when working with it. And lastly, I've just got a couple wood stain markers. These are great if you're just doing some minor touch-ups on wood or damaged veneer. They come in plenty of different shades and tones. These three here I just find I use the most often. All right, my friends, so that wraps up episode 1. Just a quick little debrief before you leave. So we went through what upcycling is. We dived a little bit into my own personal story and how I got started with upcycling in DIY projects. We touched on how to get started on your upcycling journey. We talked about how and where to make a workspace for yourself. And then lastly, just some of the investments you may want to consider making. So this episode was definitely more of an informative one, kind of just helping you lay that foundation for starting your journey. But now in these next episodes, we can finally get to the fun stuff. So grab your coffee and let's start creating.